Star Trek, the next generation. You're loved throughout the nation. You're my favourite show. Was in every episode you're lucky. You don't have to wait for buses. You just step into the transporter and off you boldly go. Mr. Wolf's my favourite person.
Welcome to the bOrgCast. We are the Org, and our purpose is to assimilate seasons 2 to 7 of Star Trek The Next Generation.
Hello!
Hello!
We return with 2 more episodes of Star Trek The Next Generation. Sorry, just been listening to Trailer Man.
The way he says it, I love it.
Hey, we've had some general feedback from Commander Shepard.
Hello, Commander Shepard.
He says, hello, Org Gestalt. Yes, we are inseparable. Just listened to your cast on The Offspring and felt compelled to chime in on Amory's mention of gender-neutral species. Of course, Riker, the intergalactic playboy, would get busy with a gender-neutral character in The Outcast. That was the one I was thinking of when we were talking about it. I knew there was an episode, I couldn't remember the name of it. But I would much rather talk about another non-CIS character who is one of my favourite in the entire Trek universe. This character occurred in Peter David's fantastic New Frontier series of spin-off novels, which was one of the first attempts to create an almost completely original crew. I recommend them heartily if you haven't read them. In the novels, the ship's engineer was the wonderful, and I'm going to mispronounce this no doubt, but what do you reckon, Burgoyne?
Yeah.
172, a Hermat. The Hermat, an obvious play on hermaphrodite, were dual gender rather than gender neutral, and requested their own set of pronouns in the crew's lexicon. Bergie herself had several affairs with crew members of both genders, and she/he even went on to have a plotline allegorising the rights of the father to be involved in their child's upbringing, a subject close to my heart when, spoiler, he had a child with Next Generation's Dr. Salar as a result of a bout of Ponfar. Anyway, no particular point beyond read New Frontier. Love the cast and look forward to the next episode. Commander Shepard out, taps chest. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I've definitely read one of those.
Yeah, I
back
have
in the
at
day.
least one, possibly 2.
Yeah,
but ages ago.
Yeah. I had a bunch of them at one time and then ditched them sadly. But excellent stuff. Shall we move on to tonight's episode?
Yeah.
Okay, it's Sins of the Father.
Next time on Star Trek The Next Generation.
You are a traitor.
Worf is accused of treason and faces a Klingon death penalty.
It is a good day to die.
His enemies are hiding the truth that could free him.
You will not execute a member of my crew.
Now, Captain Picard must risk his life to defend Worf's innocence on Star Trek The Next Generation.
There we are, exciting stuff. I hand over to Anne-Marie.
I've spent the whole of this episode being earwormed by Son of Father. But yeah, Son of the Father.
And now we're all earwormed by it too. Curse you!
I do that.
Terrible 70s tune.
It is bad.
Moving swiftly on.
Sorry. Well, the trailer is a good trailer in that, that's a pretty good summary of the plot, but it misses out a lot of cool stuff that happens before.
Yes. It's a curious one, isn't it? Because it starts out like one sort of story, and then about how I made a note of how far into it. It all
About
12 minutes in,
Yeah.
then it all becomes a lot more serious. But it begins with
Yeah, well, it starts off that as a callback to Matter of Honour, the Enterprise are going to have a Klingon exchange student who's going to take over temporarily the first officer's role. And basically, this guy turns up and he's called Kern, and he's really horrible to everybody except Worf, who is incredibly patronisingly nice to. But there is this brilliant scene where there's a proper formal dinner in his honour, and he's gone,
How long has this bird been dead? It appears to have been lying in the sun for quite some time.
Well, it's not dead. It's been replicated, and You do understand that we cook most of our foods.
Yes, I was told to prepare for that. I shall try some of your burned, replicated bird meat.
Yeah, he's played by the awesome Tony Todd, who has a Candyman. I think I've not seen any of the horror stuff he's done, but he's been in various. He was also in DS9.
Yep, same character, wasn't it?
Well, he was in DS9 as Khan. Wasn't he also?
I think he played another Klingon.
Jake, wasn't he the older Jake?
Yes, he was.
In that that heart-wrenching episode.
Yeah.
But anyway, I mean, he's brilliant in this.
Yeah, he is. He is brilliant. It's interesting, and initially you think that this is going to be an episode about.
Yeah, it's a sort of light comedy episode as a reverse of A Matter of Honour, where Riker went aboard the Par, and then it's actually the Par, I think, itself that turns up with Kern on board to then, and yeah, there are a few comedy moments, poor old Wes crapping himself.
Yeah.
But then it suddenly, 12 minutes in, becomes a lot more serious, where he reveals that he's Worf's brother.
And that their father has been accused of being a traitor.
Mm.
So off they go to the Klingon homeworld, and there's these various court scenes and the charges are brought, but it's really at that stage initially a bit obscure. It's just all a bit like being in the playground. Everybody stands around, everybody goes, no, your dad is a traitor, and there's not a lot else to it.
Well, it doesn't help that Duras is a very sort of petulant. He's not supposed to be a teenager, but he comes across as being a petulant teenager, doesn't he?
Yeah. Which doesn't help. So then it's up to the Enterprise crew to find out what exactly the charges are and what the smeg is going on. And then it's really obvious that logs have been tampered with, that the Romulans were given the codes to bring down the shields at Khitomer by someone, and they've been fiddled, so it looks like Mog, but it wasn't him. And it turns out it was Duras.
And Mog being Worf's father, yeah.
Yep.
And the way they visually represent the fact that the logs have been tampered with them being out of sequence, is very clever.
It is.
Quite often, it's a load of technobabble and it doesn't really mean a thing. But here, actually, they present it very clearly, and it is.
I'd love to know what was on the screen, because it probably says
too small to read, but yeah.
Or it says, LeVar pointed this bit here. Thank you very much. Now Data nods. Or do you know what I mean? It probably didn't say, because it's never close up, but you do see that they're moving in.
But you can see the pattern of because what it is there is a Klingon ship that's picked up the transmission, and there's a Federation ship, and at one point the two transmissions obviously don't match up, and it's because the Klingons have been fiddling with it.
Yep.
Because they don't want Duras's family to be exposed, because Duras's family is now very powerful.
Yep, and the very powerful Duras family have hired some goons to take out Kern. He's going to survive, but Worf needs another Chadich.
Which sounds so Dune. Isn't that the weirding word? They Chadich, and they shoot their weirding modules.
I don't know. They might have done it deliberately as a nod to Patrick Stewart.
I now want to watch Dune again.
They might have done that deliberately just to wind Patrick Stewart up.
Yes, I wonder what that is in Klingon.
Yeah, so Picard is now the Chadich, because he's who Worf wants. And he kicks some arse in this. When he goes and finds the woman who was actually an eyewitness and he gets attacked, he takes a Klingon down.
Yep.
And he's got blood on his little Klingon stabby thing. And yeah.
Part of the justification, because you'd think actually Riker would have been a better person to stand as Chadich, as a younger, stronger type person, but actually they were, at this point in the series, trying to basically give, partly because by Patrick Stewart's own request, trying to give Picard a bit more action stuff to do, rather than him being stuck in the command chair all the time, which obviously flies in the face a bit of the way they set the series up, with number one being the one who beams down all the time. But obviously there's a specific reason here, and it's quite touching the way that Worf asked Picard to stand for him. So
yeah, and then they find out who the traitor was, and then they wheel this woman out who used to be Worf's nurse. And she goes, I remember Kempek. He was fat. And then they go and see Kempek, who was just like, no, the Duras family are too powerful, so we fiddled it all. And then he says, so you can go now, we're not going to hear your evidence. And then he goes, in a sort of really slimy sort of way.
It is good to see you again.
You are still fat, Kempek.
Yes, that's do I want to say Kempek?
Yeah.
Kempek, who's leader of the council.
He is fat.
he's a large chap. He's for some strange reason he's wearing exactly pretty much a few more medals added on, but basically the same kit as General Cord from Star Trek V.
Uh-huh.
The reason being, it's the same damn actor. Different forehead, but same actor underneath.
Yeah.
He does make a good Klingon.
He does. So in the end, Picard gives this impassioned speech, "You're not going to execute my officer, you're fiddling all of this." And Kempek tries the whole, but, if you carry on with this, then the alliance with the Federation will break down. And he's like, we're not interested in having an alliance with liars. And so Worf offers to accept discommendation, which will leave him alive but dishonoured, but he wants Kern's identity to remain secret, and that way you prevent the Klingon civil war, supposedly. But Kern is alive, knows what's happened, and so if someday justice will be done and Kern will overturn it, is the hope. I mean, to be honest, if that was, I still don't really understand why Worf does that. It doesn't fit with the same Worf who said no Romulans get in my blood. To me, it, and for the fact that Picard doesn't even suggest it, Worf does. That to me doesn't fit with the character.
Well, no, he's doing it for the benefit of the Empire as a whole, isn't he? Yeah, I can just about buy it. Just about. I mean, it does. Yeah.
For me, I don't.
I mean, the fact is that his decision then shapes his character arc, basically, for the rest of Next Gen and a bit of Deep Space Nine as well. Another series, maybe he wouldn't have done that, and the character wouldn't have accepted that and would have fought and stuff. But actually, it's rather more interesting if they do, if he does the honourable thing, although in many ways it isn't. But you know what I mean. For the greater good. Effectively, that's what's going on here, isn't it? It's the Klingon greater good.
Yeah, but it isn't, and it just shows that the Empire's all gone wrong, which of course
corrupt.
It does play out later.
Yeah.
But what would have worked more for me is if Worf said, "I'll do this for you," right? If Duras himself, the twatty petulant one,
the one he does give him a slap.
Yeah, no, but a slap is not enough, right? Picard wouldn't be happy if he said you kill him, right? But he should have been exiled. Not necessarily given an explanation. He should have said, you can send him on gardening leave for all I care, but he doesn't have any role. That, to me, would fit better as a bargain. As it is, I think he could have bargained a lot harder and didn't. Do you know what I mean? He accepts it.
But I mean, he couldn't have said that because the Duras family's too powerful.
No, not that the Duras family takes the dishonour, because that makes no sense of anything. Just him. He specifically. He goes away.
He's a member that he's most important person in the Duras family. He isn't then going to go away and stuff, because I mean the whole reason why this is all being concocted is to save the face of the Duras family. Well, that doesn't work.
You send him on a suicide mission, turn him into a kamikaze pilot. I don't know.
Again, he's never going to agree to that, is he? So.
No, but the point is that at that point, Worf holds all the bargaining chips.
He doesn't. He doesn't really, does he? Because if Worf says, oh no, I'm going to fight this, ultimately they'll just say, well, Kempek says, well, High Council's decided you're guilty, nobody's going to pay any attention to you, so.
Yeah.
He's on a lose-lose, so he picks the...
Don't they have the internet yet, then? Can you not just go and broadcast the truth?
But nobody's... Yeah. That's a bit like today when people, oh yeah, the Americans never really landed on the moon, and you read out on the internet and everybody believes it. Come on.
Maybe if you presented the evidence and had Federation backing.
But then,
and enough people would believe it to destabilise the Empire.
The whole point is that's what he's trying to avoid, the Empire being destabilised. That's exactly why he takes the discommendation. So he's making the wrong choice for the right reasons, if you see what I mean. Anyway, this is all lots of ifs and buts, and we'll get on to the Klingon Civil War in about 6 months' time, I think, by my reckoning.
Yeah, glory to you and your house.
I don't think Garon comes into it just yet, does he? But anyway,
I think isn't he part 2 of the single Civil War stuff?
I'm not sure. You were saying
briefly
as we were watching it, you kept saying, "Oh, are the Duras sisters in this?" And it's like, no, not yet. But there is a certain amount, because this is now an ongoing story.
Yeah,
that's
it's
cover
just all meshed into one in my brain.
Not just the rest of the series, but of course Generations are in that, and Deep Space Nine to an extent as well. And so you're remembering stuff, but not necessarily from the story you're watching from later on.
It's all got mashed into one in my head.
To see it all. But yes. I mean, it's a great story.
It is. It's
whether
very
you agree
good.
with Worf's decision or not.
Yeah.
It's got action. It's got political intrigue.
Yeah.
It's got plenty of Klingons, which normally makes for a good story.
It's got some fantastic acting in it.
It's got some very good acting. It's also got Picard in the worst cunning disguise since...
Oh, I know, it's terrible. It's not quite
I
as
shall
bad
wear
as
a cloak, but not have it done up so that everybody can see I'm wearing a Star Trek uniform. Well, nobody's going to work out who you are then, Chardich, are they?
No, and he's he's
dear.
got a bit to pull over his head to sort of disguise the fact
Yeah.
he doesn't have a pasty, but then he keeps pulling it down. So
Yeah.
basically, you're wearing a dressing gown, mate. You know, it doesn't really help. So, no, it is a very good episode. I just personally find it difficult to swallow that the Worf, who just was very adamant that he was not going to do what the Federation's definition of the honourable thing and give blood to a Romulan, I find it very difficult that Worf seemingly so easily accepts this discommendation.
Well, I don't think he does it easily, but...
See, I said, yeah, too easily anyway,
Right.
for me.
I disagree, but there we go.
I still think it's a really good episode.
Great fun. Yes, superb stuff. Right, shall we see what Mr. Pieman made of it?
Yeah.
For starters, and I know I keep banging on about this, but the Next Generation continuity again. We reference that Season 2 episode with Mendon, and the events of this episode lead into many of the future Klingon-based episodes. The contrasting command styles displayed when Kern is on the Enterprise is fun. Nice to see the idea that the Klingons are a different culture, and very in character for Picard to accept this. Bet days after this episode, Riker was strutting around saying, "See, I'm not so bad, eh? Now stop whinging." Yes. Of course, the meat of this episode is finding out a lot of Worf's backstory and Klingon politics. A nice mystery for the crew to solve, and a genuinely unexpected ending. I remember when I were a lad, we all knew Q episodes would be good, and episodes of the Borgin were a must-watch, but I never remember thinking, oh good, a Klingon episode. Silly younger Pieman. I do think they get a bit overused a bit later on, but generally, yes, certainly thus far. I mean, the best episode of Season 1, Klingon episode. Best episode of Season 2, Matter of Honour, Klingon episode. So there is a pattern so far, and this is not as good as, I still say,
Defector?
A Defector.
I agree.
But it's not too far behind. It's certainly one of the best episodes of Season 3 so far.
It is a really good episode, but I'm still with the Defector at the moment.
Yeah, definitely a Defector still wins, actually.
Yeah. Maybe this whole you don't look forward to the Klingon episodes is because you get Alexander after a bit.
Yeah, it gets overused, I seem to remember. Well, I may yet be proved wrong, but I do seem to remember that after a while they just it's like, oh, it's the Klingons again. Let's move on, shall we? Yeah. Alrighty, so we start with a good story. That's usually a bad sign.
It is, yeah. It's usually you've got poo. What is your episode called?
It's called Allegiance. And initially I remembered nothing from the title. I saw a picture on Memory Alpha and it still didn't jog my memory. It's two very strange guys. I put that up on Tumblr. And then I did my bit of research. It was like, oh, it's this one. But I can't remember whether this one... It's certainly not a brilliant episode, but I can't remember if it's okay, meh, or stinky. Let's find out.
Yes.
Next time on Star Trek The Next Generation, Captain Picard is secretly kidnapped and replaced by an alien imposter.
That's not the captain I know.
While the real captain is trapped with savage prisoners.
We are not the enemy.
The imposter is leading the ship into disaster.
You are endangering this ship for no reason.
On Star Trek The Next Generation.
So, Allegiance. It starts with Picard having a lax, as our daughter would put it.
Yes.
In his quarters, when suddenly a 2001 style obelisk appears above him.
But it's blue.
And it's blue, and he disappears, and he wakes up in a room with two other people laid out on beds, and there's one empty bed. Meanwhile, the bridge of the Enterprise have detected an energy spike, and Worf goes charging off with his security team to find out what's happened to the captain. But when he knocks on the door effectively, the captain is there having a drink and a read, basically.
He's got his Earl Grey hot.
Yeah. Meanwhile, the other Picard, because we're obviously dealing with two Picards here, is surrounded by a bowling cadet, Cadet Harrow, and we've got some chap called Kothar Thol, which is a very Star Trek name, isn't it? Of Mizar 2, And they are obviously all captives. Meanwhile, the other Picard orders the Enterprise to a pulsar and then bans all off-ship communication, starting to act strangely. They're having a chat, the prisoners, and apparently Myzarians have no enemies, which makes Picard laugh because actually they've just been invaded loads. Damn dirty neutrals.
Yeah.
And they get a newcomer who's dressed as Morn. Hooray! That's exactly the same costume that Morn had.
Is it?
Yes, he recycled it. But this guy's from Chaunar and he's called Esok and he's your fairly...
He reminds me of the Gelf in Red Dwarf. They are... If you do a look on YouTube of the Gelf, they look similar, except Esok's got 4 big teeth. But other than that, the whole shaggy head, that type look...
All right.
Is very similar.
I mean, he's your standard, cliched, tough alien that's, a threat to everybody. Particularly when they discover that the food that they've been provided with he can't eat.
Yeah, but it's jelly!
It does look like jelly.
Jelly! I am Rod Hull! Jelly!
Yes.
What is the meaning of this? When you booked me for the show, I asked for green-flavoured jelly. This is red flavour.
I'm sorry, they didn't have green, it's just red, all right?
The strangeness of the replica Picard continues as he doesn't quite join in with the poker game, but he comes and watches.
Which is a bit odd.
And sends Geordie off to fiddle with the engines to make it more efficient. He has a word with Troy out in the corridor, asking how will the crew react if he started acting slightly strange. So it's like,
So why doesn't she sense he's a fake? Never explained.
No, never explained. He's obviously...
and it just makes me think you're a bit of a shit empath, aren't you, really?
Well, obviously he's sending out the right signals. And then he invites Dr. Crusher to a date.
Oh, and he doesn't wear enough.
Yeah, you were a bit disturbed by his costume choice.
Well, before you see him stand up, okay, before you know he's got trousers on, okay, what he's wearing looks like the sort of nasty, skimpy dressing gown you sometimes see in movies and which also my dad wore. And he's sitting there, and it's sort of very open-chested, and I just sat there and thought, ew, he's got no pants on! Which isn't true, but that's, I'm afraid, where my brain went. And also... he is really, really cheesy.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's deliberate. I think that's Patrick Stewart playing the character in a different way. So you know he's a fake. Don't get me wrong. But it's really slimy and horrible.
And he has a bit of a dance.
Oh, don't.
With a doc, and then kind of kicks her out, basically.
Well,
it's like...
he sort of snogs her, and then she was like, are you playing games with me? And he's like, yeah, I was, but never mind. Fuck off. And chucks her out.
Yeah, not very nice, is it?
No! Meanie!
Yeah, Riker and Troy are meeting in 10-4 because they're worried that he's not right. And then Picard walks in and starts leading a song.
But at that point, I started looking at the internet on my phone because I remembered that, and I remembered how bloody awful it was, and I was like, when this scene is finished, I will concentrate again on the episode, but for now I'm going to do anything else because it's creating mind bleach.
Come cheer up, my lads, 'tis to glory we steer, to find something new in this wonderful year. To honor we call you as free men of slaves, for who are so free as the sons of the waves. Heart of oak are our ships, jolly tars are our men. We always are ready, steady boys, steady. We'll fight and we'll conquer again and again. Come cheer up, my lads, 'tis to glory we steer, to find something new in this wonderful year.
What's the captain up to?
That's not the captain I know.
So free as the sons of the waves, heart of oak are our ships, jolly tars are our men.
It's not that bad.
Oh, it is. It's terrible.
So then all the senior officers get together and have a powwow, basically, because they realise that clearly something's wrong here.
Yeah.
And Doc Crusher says that she'd done a medical on him and all the results were identical to the last test he had, which is odd in itself.
Yeah.
So Riker asks to see Picard privately in his ready room and basically, he's asking what this strange mission is about that they've gone on. They're basically getting very close to a pulsar, which isn't a clever idea.
No, it's eating up their shields.
Yeah. And Picard basically threatens to relieve Riker of duty. And as things get worse and they get closer and closer, Riker takes the initiative and says, okay, I'm relieving you of duty. And Picard orders Worf to take Riker off the bridge, but Worf kind of stands there. And
he doesn't just stand there. He stands more upright than usual, flares his nostrils and puts his hands behind his back.
Yeah, he doesn't say anything though, which is
no,
really odd.
He doesn't. But he's just, it's the whole non-verbal communication of, no, I'm not doing it, so no.
Yeah.
But sort of Klingon styley.
Meanwhile, the real Picard is trying to escape the cell, and he's being helped by the
Haro, something
Haro,
like that?
yes. They smash up the panel and she's got her hands inside, but then something goes click and they get zapped by this pain ray, basically. And this starts breeding even more distrust between the four, and the finger starts pointing at Picard as possibly somebody from, he's not who he says he is, and somebody from outside. But Picard, meanwhile, has realised that actually it's Cadet Haro because she has knowledge of a confidential mission that she shouldn't know about. So,
and it's actually the one they mentioned in the teaser.
well, initially she mentions
Mintaka 3.
Mintaka 3, which
another one we don't know about,
which is a callback to what was that? It was a rubbish episode from right near the start of the season.
It was Pooh.
Yes, the duck blind one.
Who watches the Watchers?
Very good, well done. Yes. So she shouldn't really have known about that, and then he tests her by mentioning the mission that he mentions right at the start, which is a confidential one, and she knows about that as well. So he basically calls her bluff eventually and says, you're the one who's been watching us all the time. And he's worked out that why these 4 people in particular have been chosen is because they represent different approaches to authority. So you've got the pacifist guy, the damn dirty neutral, you've got the violent guy, and then you've got the Starfleet people following orders.
Thing is, though, the violent guy is not actually that violent.
No, he does control himself. For somebody who's supposed to, at one point they describe him as being an anarchist, and it's like, he's the best behaved anarchist I've ever seen.
Yeah.
All he does is lose his rag a bit on Mr. Pacifist, but Mr. Pacifist is bloody annoying, and I would have lost my rag with him by then
I'd have slapped him. Yeah.
Yes.
So
anyway,
he's not that violent, really.
Having exposed the cadet, she transforms into 2 strange-looking dudes who apparently have telepathic connection, and then they all get returned to their various places. So Picard appears on the bridge with one of the dudes, and then the fake Picard turns into another of the dudes. They're all identical. They've obviously got twins on board, and apparently this species has a telepathic link with one another, and as a result there's no sort of authority structure at all. There's no leader as such, and so they're studying this leadership thing, and Picard points out that they've done it in a fairly horrible way, and they said, well, you've not been harmed. And he said, well, actually, imprisoning somebody is harming them. How would you like it? And then turns a beam on them.
Confinement beam?
Yeah, some sort of pink confinement beam, so they're stuck there and sort of they react badly to this. And he says, well, serves you right.
Yeah.
And then he drops the beam, and he says, don't do it again, and they leave.
But he does say, we know what you look like, we know who you are, we know how to confine you. Bear that in mind.
Yes. And then he turns to Riker and says, so, how did you know? And Riker says, well, I don't think you're actually that good a singer, which is not a bad line.
Yeah.
But then the episode really fizzles out at that point. They didn't know how to end it, because then Crusher walks onto the bridge, gives Picard a look, and Picard, which completely throws Picard because he doesn't know obviously what's been going on. And he says engage, and that's end of episode. So it definitely runs out of ideas pretty damn quickly, doesn't it?
It should have finished ever so slightly earlier. It should have
just
finished
10
with
minutes earlier, to be honest.
Well, no, it should have finished with, I didn't think you were that good a singer.
Yeah, that would have been an okay ending.
That would have been all right as an ending.
As a slightly punny ending, yes.
Yeah, it would have been a bit better than the ending you
got.
But
it's a bit padded out to make it last. It's basically a interesting idea there, but it doesn't really stretch out to a whole episode. It's quite fun at times watching the fake Picard, although also sometimes quite cringeworthy as well.
Yeah.
But that's something a bit different at least, and an interesting thing to explore, I suppose.
But why did they bring Violent Man? Because they're like, oh, he's an anarchist. Well, so are they if they've got no authority structure?
No, that's a bit different, because they don't need an authority structure because they know what everybody's thinking, so therefore they're all on an equal footing. That's different to being anarchists who don't care what anybody else is doing.
Okay.
So it is a fair thing to do. But yeah, it was okay, but to be honest, they didn't have 40 minutes worth of episode there.
No.
It was about half an hour's worth of episode at most.
I think that's quite generous, actually.
Yeah.
I'd say 20 minutes.
So there we go. Not really bad, but not great. So yeah. I guess it ended up in pretty much meh territory, this one. Let's see what Pie Man has to say. Not bad for a bottle episode. While there isn't much tension, it's good to see Picard take charge in the weird lab experiments, and Patrick Stewart gets to do some nice out-of-character stuff. Was thinking the pacifist race awfully similar to the alien in the Doctor Who episode. The God Complex. Wonder if Moffat watches Next Generation. I can't remember that one, but then I can't remember a lot of modern Who, I'm afraid. It goes in one eyeball and out the other quite a bit. Overall, not great, but not awful. Yeah, it's pretty much how we concluded. And a nice touch at the end when Picard traps the aliens. Inoffensive is probably the best description. Yeah, buy that. It's okay. Nothing special, but nothing awful.
Not really impressed.
No.
For me, the highlight was the jelly.
Okay. Get very excited at jelly, don't we?
Yes.
I am Roadhouse.
Okay. We could explain what that's a reference to, but again, it'd take too long. Feel free to type in YouTube.
Fist of Fun.
Fist of Fun, yeah. Here we go. So, we were not too bad this time round. Next time we'll be covering Thursday, the 20th of December. So it'll be be feeling quite Christmassy at that point.
Yeah.
And we'll be watching Captain's Holiday and Tin Man.
I seem to remember Tin Man is shite.
I was remembering much the same about Captain's Holiday, but there we go.
See, Captain's Holiday is another one, a bit like Sins of the Father, where in my brain a lot of things have got confused, and I'm not entirely sure what it is that happens in that specific episode.
There we go. So we've got that to look forward to. If you'd like to send some feedback, either on those episodes or the ones we've covered this time, then feel free to do so on the Geek Planet online forums, or on Twitter. I'm Rev_org.
I'm Ammo_purple.
On the Tumblr site, which is bOrgCast.tumblr.com, and I try and most days stick some pickies up there and stuff from the episode we've been talking about. And there's my email address, which is revpeterorgan@yahoo.co.uk. Huzzah! We shall catch you nearer to Christmas.
Nearly Christmas.
Yes, nearly Christmas tide. I think we can't really do a Christmas episode, I don't think we...
Not without doing Generations.
Oh, God, no. We're not going down that route. I'm not watching Generations just for Picard's twee idea of the most magic Christmas ever.
Oh, Papa, come and see my fucking cheesy doll's house.
Yes, I can definitely wait until we've watched the rest of the series. I'm in no hurry to watch Generations. Take care, folks. Cheers, bye.
Bye. The bOrgCast is brought to you by those lovely purple people at Geek Planet Online. The song of the opening of this podcast was written and performed by Adam Buxton and is used with his kind permission.